how I'm looking. Beautiful. Sexy.
One could have easily mistaken these words, how I'm looking, beautiful, sexy, or hot, to be uttered by a Kim Kardashian, a Kendall Jenner, or some other young woman on Instagram seeking fame if it wasn't for the broken English. The broken English, how I'm looking, not how am I looking, hides a story much deeper and significant than a simple appeal for likes on social media. This minor grammatical difference underscores a world altogether different than that of TikTok stars. These words, as salacious and incorrectly framed as they may be, mark a struggle that one sees only if they read between the lines. These were the very words that gave a woman in Pakistan a new life, a life she had always desired. But the very same words were also responsible for snatching away that life from her. This is the story of that woman from Pakistan who simply yearned for a better life. This is the story of Qandeel Baloch. Hi everyone, welcome to the Desi Crime Podcast, a show where we dive deep into some of the craziest cases from around South Asia. I'm your host Aryaan.
And I'm Aishwarya.
And the case that I have for you today must sound familiar to many of you.
Aryaan, this case definitely sounds familiar to me because this name sounds
Qandeel
so familiar
Baloch.
to me from back in like our high school days. And for those of you who don't know, we've actually already covered this case on our audio podcast. So if you want to go listen to that, head over to the Desi Crime Podcast, where we have a catalogue of more than 100 cases, most of which have not yet been released on YouTube. So there's a lot of content.
But for those of us or you listening on YouTube,
Yeah.
please hit the subscribe button.
Somewhere right there.
You
go
know,
hit the
it'll
subscribe
help us
button.
grow the channel and whatnot. But this name, Qandeel Baloch, definitely
Definitely rings a bell. We've done this episode before. I don't remember much.
Aishwarya is probably correct because in 2016, that name, Qandeel Baloch, was the most Google named in all of Pakistan. She was Pakistan's first social media celebrity, compared often to a Kim K in her mannerisms. And so I'm not surprised the viral shed of her virality found its way into your social feed. At one point or the other, the name Qandeel Baloch has come up. But I'm sure many of you, just like us, are able to recall someone who goes by that name, but not quite put your tongue on who that name belongs to, and why was it the most Google named in Pakistan in 2016? Who is this Qandeel Baloch? For that, as always, let's rewind our clocks back to March 1st, 1990, when Qandeel was born. Qandeel was born in the southern Punjab region of Pakistan. She grew up in a small town called Shah Sardar Din with her 8 siblings, 6 brothers and 2 sisters. The family's patriarch was Muhammad Azim, along with his wife Anwar Bibi. Now, even though it was a big household, their house was not so big. You see, Anwar and Azim barely made ends meet. Whatever little they had came from meager farming that they were able to muster each harvest cycle. But it was never enough. The family of 11 grew up on the brink of poverty. But although their conditions were destitute, the family stuck together. The Dera Ghazi Khan district of Pakistani Punjab, where Azim and his family lived, wasn't the wealthiest region of Pakistan, and it most certainly wasn't the most progressive and liberal one. Echoes of Kohistan, which is in the north of Pakistan, can be heard here. Even though the geography and climate are the stark opposites of Kohistan with its frigid hills and southern Punjab with its scorching fields, the cultural climate, unfortunately, is the same. You barely see any women on the streets. Men populate the shops and roads and parks and food stalls, and probably somewhere in a room are all the women laboring away at the day's household chores. To exemplify the extent to which women were suppressed in this region, here is an anecdote from a nearby village. Women in a particular village in that region aren't allowed to wear shoes or any kind of footwear outside their homes. Why do you think such a rule exists? The unbelievable reality is that this is not just a tool of repression, but an insidious tactic. This region in Punjab becomes boiling hot during the summers, and by forcing women to be barefoot outside their homes, the men ensure that a woman is always looking down to the ground, trying her best to keep her feet from melting. And in doing so, it guarantees that the woman will not make eye contact with any other man. There is subtle sexism, and then there is blatant sexism like this. But as conservative as this region may be, contrary to what you think I'm about to say, Qandeel's family differs in this approach. Her mom, Anwar Bibi, understood the importance of educating her girls, not just her boys. Azim, their father, thought reading the Quran was sufficient for a girl, and anything more than a single religious book is a preposterous demand. However, Bibi insisted and sent her girls to school to get a proper education. But money was sparse, and growing up, Qandeel had to work in the fields with a sickle, and she never complained to do so. Ever since she was a child, alleviating her parents' poverty had been a driving force for this young girl. She was always ready to help out with the small things around the house. But that's not what she wanted to do forever. She wanted to make it big and bring her parents up the socioeconomic ladder with her. But if she were going to make it big in what? This is Dera Ghazi Khan district. Which industry, field or career would she possibly make it big in here? Making it big was too big a dream to have in the small town she came from. But the answer to this dilemma lay in front of a new tenant in the Azim family, their brand new television. A television, you say, a harmless little box, right? How did that solve Qandeel's dilemma? Well, to us a TV might seem like an archaic farm implement. After all, who watches TV in 2024? Clearly, you don't, because you're listening to a podcast and probably driving or walking or working out or eating food right now, or maybe trying to go to sleep. But the television, for most kids born in the 90s and even 2000s, was the only insight into an alternate life, an insight into the world outside your home. The three sisters loved watching television, but had to sneak it past their father. Azim did not have a television, so his daughters had to go to their friend's house and catch a glimpse of the latest cricket match or Bollywood movie. But our star, the mom, Anwar Bibi, was the girl's advocate. She gave her son a few ₹100 and told him to buy a TV for the house. Now the living room of the small house had a screen that captured Qandeel's eyes. Qandeel's sisters recall how she used to be glued to the television. And from that addiction to the glamorous lifestyles of celebrities and Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi style operas was born Qandeel's ultimate dream: to be successful on the silver screen.
And it's so heartwarming to watch Qandeel's mom, right? Who in her time must also have been a young girl like Qandeel.
Yeah.
And this is her sort of way. We all know our parents lived through us a little bit. This is her way of living through her daughter, maybe letting her daughter do things that she probably wanted to, never got to do. So it's really nice to see. It's always nice to see moms that are like girls, you know?
Yeah. Qandeel wanted to become an actress and a singer. She wanted the fame and money that came with the celeb status. But dreaming big around people with small minds is dangerous. And before she knew it, her aspirations had caught wind of her parents' narrow-mindedness. Yes, Anwar used to fight for her daughters, and Azim on the whole was a rather accepting father for someone in that town. But they still were old people from a generation bygone. The notion that their own daughter would move to Islamabad or some other big city and act and sing in front of other men? Reprehensible. Qandeel's ambitions had to be quenched, and as is often the case, she was married off at the young age of 17. At 17, Qandeel, who hadn't even completed her studies, not received the opportunity to go to university, was now shackled to a man she barely knew, let alone loved. This man was Anwar's cousin. At 17, Qandeel was married off to her own relative against her will. Although some accounts state that she readily accepted the marriage, regardless, she was shipped off to her in-laws. There, within a year, Qandeel was pregnant and gave birth to her first child. Now, this is usually the point in a woman's life when she loses all hope. She is married, she has a child, all those dreams and ambitions every woman has at this stage seem too far, too distant. In fact, women more often than not feel guilty for chasing their own dreams, thinking they are sacrificing their family life for their life. Qandeel's situation might have turned out to be similar, until the abuse began. In her own words, quote, "My age wasn't old enough. I was merely 17. My education wasn't complete and I still had so much I wanted to do. My parents married me off to a despicable man. This man would torture me, beat me, burn off cigarettes on my neck. These people were so dangerous." End quote. Simply put, she had had enough. Sometimes you need to hit rock bottom to start your journey upwards, and having cigarettes being burnt on your neck by your child's father is rock bottom if there was any. Qandeel packed her stuff up and fled with her infant son to a woman's shelter in a nearby city called Multan. Qandeel was completely cut off, socially and financially. While at the shelter, her baby boy got sick. The former housewife didn't have any money for milk or medicine. She feared if her son died on her watch, her ex-husband would kill her. And so, she offered the man she was forced to marry to keep his child. But he had a condition. Qandeel, you will have to give up all custodial rights to this kid. Qandeel said yes. To disown her own waris, her own blood, is frowned upon in Pakistan, and understandably so. But nothing up to this point in her life was a consequence of her own volition. So if the first thing she did from her own free will required a bit of sacrifice, who am I to judge her? Leaving her husband and child was perhaps Qandeel's first step towards freedom. And though it came at a cost, she was one step closer to the life she dreamed of. The glitter, glamour, and glory of the big city. And so she did it. One step closer to her dreams required quite a few steps away from her home in Punjab, almost 500 kilometers worth of steps more, all the way to Islamabad. Qandeel began her life anew in the capital of Pakistan. For a second, let's go back to that clip you heard of Qandeel in the beginning. That clip doesn't quite sound like the kind of Qandeel I've described to you up until now.
How I'm looking? Beautiful? Sexy?
Aishwarya, bereft of context, what do you make of this clip?
I think obviously such clips aren't uncommon all over the internet anymore.
Yeah.
They're obviously a little bit cringeworthy. And I wouldn't look very highly upon a woman, a man, a young person who was seeking so much external validation about their physical appearance. It doesn't look the best, but
that is without context.
That's
right?
without
That's just
context,
on face
obviously.
value. And that's what I thought while researching this case. I came across these clips. And I was pretty judgmental about her actions, that sort of validation that I was seeking.
Yeah.
But that's what a superficial glance offers you. A surface level understanding of Qandeel Baloch tells you nothing about Qandeel Baloch, because Qandeel Baloch was an act. From all we know about Qandeel up to this point is that she's the victim of domestic abuse from a poor family who's given up everything to get a shot at a better life. What made her go from that to someone who was putting out videos on the internet asking men how hot she was in explicit clothing? That was all a facade, a mask worn by Foozia Azim. Qandeel Baloch was the stage name of Foozia Azim. The woman I've described up to this point was Foozia. That's the real name of Qandeel Baloch. Her new name came about when she went to Islamabad and started a new life. As many aspiring actors do, they find a name more memorable. And for what it's worth, Qandeel Baloch is a name remembered by millions around the world, even today. What you, me, and Aishwarya view as cringe or salacious or sexiness was simply her way out of the shackles imposed by society. And yes, I agree, that is counterintuitive, but let me tell you how exactly this came to be. How did this innocent girl from Punjab become Pakistan's version of Rakhi Sawant or Kim K? Foozia, here on referred to as her preferred name, Qandeel, didn't strike big in the showbiz at first. She ran away to Islamabad in 2009. She had no form of identification on her, no money, and no ties to her own family. So for the first couple of years, Qandeel worked at a bus company as a hostess, reciting prayers at the beginning of journeys and keeping passengers company. A job she did not move to the big city for. So eventually, 3 years after running away, Qandeel made contact with her father and rekindled that relationship. Azim and Anwar Bibi were elated to have their daughter back. They provided her the necessary documents she required to get her national identification card, so known as a NADRA card, and for our hardcore Desi listeners, you would remember the NADRA card played an important role in the Kohistan case. And this NADRA card made it 10 times easier for her to find a place to stay, apply for auditions, and get the kinds of jobs she wanted.
I don't know if this is just the skeptic in me, but every time a family is incredibly conservative to the point where
Yeah.
they haven't been a support to their daughter for years now. She had to give up a child. She was in an abusive marriage. You married her off. She had no support system. She had to work these jobs to make her way. And now suddenly they make this 180-degree flip.
Yeah.
It's so quintessential of honor killings in South
Yeah.
Asia that it just makes my heart drop.
Yeah, I think the only difference in this case and what proved to be the eventual silver lining, as you'll find out, is Anwar Bibi, right? Because that mom
right.
served to be that one person that was there
Sure.
for her no matter what. So I
Yeah.
think she truly had a change of heart,
Right.
which, went on to her husband as well. And the
Right.
family truly accepted her back.
Okay. Awesome.
The kind of job she wanted finally came to her in 2013 in the form of an audition. An audition to what, you ask? An audition to a singing competition. And not just any singing competition. This was the Pakistani rendition of the Universal Idol franchisee, the Pakistani Idol. Her audition in 2013 became viral at a time when virality as a concept was just beginning to be introduced in South Asia. The only issue is that it got viral for all the wrong reasons. Here's the audition clip.
Obviously, Aryaan, she's not a singer by any standard. She's as much a singer as I am in the washroom, right? But
I'd say worse.
Yes, most likely. But there, you're right. There's something lovable about her, and she's doing this like weird thing on camera, and it all obviously seems to be some sort of an act. And we all know this about those Indian Idol contestants that like make a fool of themselves in front of the country. But yeah, you're right. There's something nice about her.
Whatever you think about it, let me just say this. It is Qandeel's eccentricities that made her lovable, and I find it adorable, hysterical, and cringe in equal amounts. Qandeel's video went viral for all the wrong reasons. This was her first viral moment, and in that she realized something influencers in 2024 strive for on a daily basis. In 2013, almost a decade ago, Qandeel realized that to be successful, you merely had to be edgy and eccentric. The Pakistani Idol performance was a taste of fame she got from a rather shallow undertaking. And an interesting side note I came across in my research, which sort of corroborates what Aishwarya was saying about these events, is that Qandeel actually doesn't sound that bad in real life. This was all a setup that the Pakistani Idol did to get more views that sort of backfired but also worked in her favor.
कहते हैं मैं दीवानी मस्तानी हो गई.
According to Qandeel, the show was a setup. The show producers told her to act funny and be silly and sing badly, promising that hers will be the funniest clip and she will get some airtime. Qandeel accepted the terms, and boy oh boy, did she get airtime. Her next moment of virality followed soon after. She uploaded a Facebook video in which she is asking a man in a seductive voice how I'm looking, not how am I looking, how I'm looking. The man in the video was her manager, and this was again all an act.
How I'm looking? Tell me how I'm looking.
Marvelous.
How I'm looking? Tell me how I'm looking.
Marvelous.
People started impersonating the how I'm looking phrase and made all kinds of satirical videos. But Qandeel got what she wanted. The bus hostess who used to pamper a few dozen passengers was now a household name across Pakistan. And Qandeel just kept pushing the envelope. Was she brazen? Yes. Was she salacious? Yes. Was she overly sexual? Absolutely. But was she hurting anybody? No. Her newer videos and pictures featured her in skimpy clothes, seductive hand gestures, spouting lips, things commonly visible on the internet nowadays, but an absolute shocker back in the early 2010s, especially in Pakistan. Women had never had someone look up to who owned her own sexuality. For centuries now, women's sexuality had been owned by their male counterparts. Finally, a woman broke through the shackles imposed upon her to be herself, and a little more. Was Qandeel the perfect idol? I don't think so. But she didn't have to be perfect, nor did she preach perfection. Take, for example, in 2016, when Pakistan's then Prime Minister denounced Valentine's Day, saying it is a Western construct and doesn't align with Pakistani values. Guess what she did? Uploaded a video in a short pink dress wishing all her followers a happy Valentine's Day. Her videos kept getting more controversial and the comment section kept getting more hateful. Slut, I will kill you, images of guns, you're a disgrace, somebody should shoot you. Comments like these were all too common on her posts. She received an unbelievable amount of hate. But Qandeel always deflected it, because with the hate came tons of love. Pakistani women uploaded videos impersonating Qandeel style, dancing and singing and talking about their desires. There's a great saying, pushing the envelope sort of implies that you're inside the envelope with everyone else, but you're trying to find the edges on the outside. In being edgy, Qandeel found the edges of the envelope that she kept pushing. And in doing so, she carried with her millions of Pakistani women that finally found their voice. But it didn't stop there. In probably her most viral video, Qandeel is seen addressing the Pakistani cricket team right before an India-Pakistan match. In the video, Qandeel says that she will striptease if Pakistan wins the match against India, and she will say each cricketer's name out loud while stripping.
मैं कंदील बलोच ऑन रिकॉर्ड ये बात करती हूँ कि अगर इस दफा 18 मार्च को होने वाले मैच में पाकिस्तान अगर इंडिया को हरा देता है तो मैं पूरे मुल्क के लिए स्ट्रिप डांस करूंगी.
Now, I don't condone or condemn that, but that video, who would have thought, went ballistically viral. Qandeel was now being invited on talk shows and news shows and reality shows to be a panelist or a guest. In 2015, she was in the top 10 most Googled things in Pakistan. But in 2016, something happened that made her not the top 10 most Googled things, but the single most Googled thing in that country. What was it? It was an interview on a Pakistani news show with a mullah, a very famous Muslim cleric named Mufti Abdul Kavi. Mufti Kavi was a religious scholar serving as the head of the National Islamic Committee in Pakistan. He was a regular guest on TV shows because of his personable nature and humorous but sexist commentary. Mufti Kavi's first encounter with Qandeel was through that television show where Kavi was invited to sort of guide Qandeel about what's the right way about acting on social media and what is the Islamic way of properly behaving. That new segment went rather amicably, surprisingly, with Mufti and Qandeel cracking jokes and having a spirited conversation. But what happened right at the very end of that nationally televised conversation changed both their lives forever. Mufti offered to meet Qandeel the next time he was in Karachi, and she said, Inshallah, khush nasibi hogi hamari, which means, God willing, it'll be my pleasure. Not soon after, in June 2016, they met in a hotel room in Karachi. Qandeel, in her typically brazen style, was wearing a tight shirt and tight pants. She recorded her meeting with Mufti Kavi, took selfies, and uploaded them to Twitter. The pictures were not received well. In one of the pictures, for example, she's wearing the Mufti's holy hat and his hair is disheveled. And in another video, the pious Mufti is caught asking her which cigarette she would like to smoke. I don't even have to say it, but this went viral unlike anything had in the past. 24/7 news cycle viral. Every news channel was covering the story, inquiring about the Mufti's intentions and Qandeel's unholy gestures.
Aryaan, while that's funny, and I don't necessarily want to laugh about it, because I get why that would make people upset, could that possibly also be an act, just like Qandeel's persona? But I don't believe that the Mufti would play along with an act like that. It's just,
I don't.
actually
You know
get
what? I
caught?
honestly think the Mufti was there in earnest. In earnest, maybe for some ulterior motive.
Sure.
But Qandeel was entertaining him purely for the act and knowing that pictures and videos of this encounter would be well received by the algorithm.
So you think he didn't know that these pictures would go up?
I don't
So he
think-
was actually caught off guard.
I think he was caught off guard.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Qandeel even accused the Mufti of misbehaving behind closed doors. The Mufti's veil of purity and piety, whether or not he had misbehaved, had now been tarnished. He was suspended from his political party and removed as the cleric for the National Commission. For Qandeel, however, the consequences were significantly more dire. The death threat she was used to receiving in the comment section now metastasized into midnight phone calls from random numbers. She asked for police security because she was scared. Her appeal was denied. Almost a month had passed and Qandeel was living in fear. She held a press conference sharing with the world the death threat she was receiving.
आज आप लोगों को बुलाने का मकसद ये है, जो बेसिकली मैंने प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस रखी है, वो इस मुफ्ती अब्दुल कवी के बाद आई स्वेयर मुझे इतने ज़्यादा थ्रेट्स आ रहे कि मेरी ज़िंदगी मेरी ज़िंदगी से सुकून चला गया है। मुझे मेरी रातों की नींद उड़ गई है। मुझे नहीं पता कि ये सब क्या हो रहा है। मेरे सोर्सेस ने मुझे अंडरग्राउंड रहने के लिए बोला है। मैं घर में कैद होके रहती हूँ कि मैं घर से बाहर नहीं निकल सकती। क्यों? क्योंकि मैं एक सच्ची बंदी हूँ। मैंने एक सच को सामने लेकर आई हूँ।
All this worsened when the world found out who she really was. Her passport pictures were leaked. Her name? Fuzia Azim. The media was unearthing everything about her past life, the life she so badly wanted to run away from. But stories about her ex-husband, her disowned child, flooded the news. She was a persona non grata, public enemy number one. So on 14th of July, almost a month after her pictures with Mufti, Qandeel had had enough and decided to go back to her parents to spend Eid with them. At least with her family, she would be safe. This time, however, she didn't return to that small house she grew up in. You see, all the money she had earned was spent on uplifting her parents, brothers and sisters out of poverty. They got a brand new house and were living a life they couldn't have dreamt of had it not been for their daughter. On the night of 15 July, Qandeel was finally surrounded by her loved ones. They talked, celebrated Eid, ate food and drank a glass of warm milk as was a ritual before sleeping. And then they all went to sleep. The sun had been out for quite a while when Anwar Bibi woke up the next morning on 16 July rather groggy. She got out of her bed and stumbled into the corridor and dropped unconscious. She didn't know what was happening to her. Maybe old age. But she had never experienced something like this. She headed into the kitchen to cook some food but couldn't see her daughter Qandeel anywhere. She shouted her name a few times and eventually headed to her bedroom. Anwar Bibi, Qandeel's mother, opened her door only to find her daughter tucked away in the blanket, fast asleep. She approached her daughter to wake her up, removed the blanket, and her shriveled brown skin turned pale white. Her daughter wasn't asleep. Her daughter was dead. Qandeel Baloch was killed in cold blood on July 15th. If you think it took time to find the perpetrator, you're dead wrong, because the perpetrator wasn't hiding away. He was parading his skill. The perpetrator was none other than her own brother, Muhammad Wasim, who was going around his town proclaiming that he had finally taken care of the issue, all the while being congratulated by others in the town. Wasim killed his own sister for honor. His confession of the crime is on tape. After being arrested, he proudly announced that Qandeel was a menace, and especially after the Maulana incident, she had brought too much shame to the family. She had to be killed.
वजह ये थी क्योंकि मैडम वीडियो फेसबुक पे आ रही थी ये ब्लॉग को मैडम हम नहीं बर्दाश्त कर सकते। टैबलेट दे के की टैबलेट दिया तो कर गला घोट दिया। नहीं मैं खुद ही हूँ कोई इसमें हाँ अकेला हूँ मैं।
Qandeel Baloch had come back home thinking that the house she had bought with her own money was a safe haven. Little did she know that her assassin was a rat residing in her own company in the form of her brother. The milk the family had the night before was drugged with sedatives. Once everyone in the house was knocked unconscious, Wasim strangled his sister to death, believing that this would somehow restore honor as if he had lost any honor in the first place. But Wasim's boisterous confession wasn't because he was crazy. It was because he knew he would walk away scot-free. Why? Because there was an unbelievable loophole in the Pakistani legal system. The Pakistani law states that if in a crime, the victim's family forgives the perpetrator is relieved from his punishment. Get that? But the only issue is that in an honor killing, more often than not, the victim's family are the very perpetrators of the crime. So in Qandeel's case, her parents held the power to get their son out of jail simply by forgiving him. But in what is a rarity, Azim and Anwar Bibi did not forgive their son. In one interview, actually, Azim is asked what should be done with the perpetrators, and he responds, they should be given the death penalty. Of the 4 men initially apprehended for organizing Qandeel's murder, only Wasim was found guilty. There were talks that Mufti Kavi's involvement was there in her death, but all those claims were never substantiated, so I cannot comment on them. Qandeel left a legacy of women's rights unlike any Pakistan had ever seen. She wasn't your typical female idol. And guess what? Sometimes you have to be atypical and unorthodox and unconventional to get shit done, to be a true Pakistani idol. And Qandeel got shit done, in life and in death. Due to the international pandemonium around her death, the Pakistani government came under a firestorm from the press. The anti-honor killing bill was immediately amended and no longer allowed the victim's family to forgive the perpetrator if the murder was an honor killing. In one of her videos, Qandeel said, "If I die, no other Qandeel Baloch will come. You will miss me." There indeed is no other Qandeel Baloch, and indeed we shall miss her forever. But I'll be misleading all of you if I said this case had a happy ending. Unfortunately, there is one final twist. Qandeel's parents changed their mind in 2019 and forgave their son. They wrote a letter to the court asking him to be released, but thankfully, by then, the new law did not allow forgiveness by the victim's family if it was an honor killing. Why they changed their minds? God only knows. But phew, right? They were so close. Well, close, but not enough. Because in February 2022, a couple of years ago, Wasim walked out of jail. His lawyer somehow proved to the court that Qandeel's murder was just a regular murder, not an honor killing. And so the parents' forgiveness still counted under the Pakistani Penal Code. How they proved it was not an honor killing, only the judge who accepted that nonsensical argument knows. From the confession tapes, it is mighty obvious to me, at least, that Wasim killed her for honor. He bloody well said so himself. But if Qandeel was killed for honor, always remember this. She died with dignity and her honor intact. I will end this episode with a short clip from a song by one of my favorite artists, the Sweatshop Boys, a music duo featuring rapper Himi and my idol Riz Ahmed. This song called Aja is their tribute to Qandeel Baloch.
If you like what we do here at Desi Studios and absolutely love what we're wearing today, this is merch you can go buy all for yourself.
You can buy this Desi Crime merch in our YouTube store on the link down below at Karak Merch. Keep the engines at Desi Studios rolling so we can pay our videographer right behind the camera to make these amazing episodes just for you.